What's up, everybody? The crew from Around the Paul is back. Garrett Mitchell, Griffin Barfield, Clifton Kennedy, and we are still sitting here licking our chops from that big chicken dinner served up by the Clemson baseball team over the weekend. We're going to talk all about that, some spring football, and a little bit of basketball for dessert. But we're going to hit a home run here on this episode of Around the Paul. So grab your glove, head to the outfield, sit back, and catch this episode as we talk about the Clemson Tigers. Let's do it.
Getting that stuff till you hearing that sound.
Well, guys, it was a productive weekend for the Clemson baseball team. You know, going into this series, and I know one game got rained out to some weather happening across the state of South Carolina, but that certainly did not stop Eric Bakich and company from winning not one, but two games over South Carolina, both by an identical score, 5-4. But I tell you what, guys, anytime you can stick it to the South Carolina Gamecocks, it is a great day in Tiger Town.
I know, right? And despite the scores being, different and being the same, they happened during different instances. Obviously, on Saturday night, the huge walk-off in the 12th inning by Andrew Cufo. I believe that was the first walk-off home run in, the Palmetto Series.
First in history.
Crazy to think about.
First in history, yeah.
Especially with rivalry games like that, I'm honestly surprised that games aren't closer and they don't rely on a walk-off, especially with how long these teams have been playing. But it's just two incredible wins. But if you look at it from a very wide perspective, it's two wins against a ranked opponent and the potential for a third, and you could do it in enemy territory. I know it sucks that you weren't able to kind of rattle off 3 wins or rattle off 3 games. You have one lingering. But I think it was just overall a great effort. I thought pitching did exceptionally. I know that we talked about that was something that Clemson needed to work on. And I really think they did the job. I thought there were some points, especially on Sunday, where there were, 2 men on, 3 men on, 1-2 out, and the Clemson pitching, came through. So I really think that it was great on all aspects. If I'm Eric Bakich, I'd be happy. You got 2 wins over your conference rival. Just another win you have over South Carolina in the Palmetto Series this year.
Yeah, and I'm gonna correct myself. That's the first time Clemson has ever walked off South Carolina. It's not the first time it's ever happened in a series because
right.
South Carolina has definitely walked us off multiple times. And but it's glad to beat them 2 out of 3. I mean, the baseball
2 out of
team
2
this
There's
year.
one game that hasn't been played yet.
2 out. Well, yeah, 2 out. Yeah, but and the thing about it is, I think it's gonna be played sometime in April. If y'all haven't heard,
yeah.
The schools have been talking. He said that something after the game, but man, just winning that series and taking 2 games so far is awesome. It really tells a lot about this team and where we've come since last season. And I think this team's just got so much talent. I mean, the lineup 1 through 15, they've been talking about. They've got 15 players on that line on that team right now that they could throw in the lineup and be comfortable with the lineup. And that tells you something about a team on the offensive end. Another thing, something that I've been worried about a little bit is starting pitching, especially that Friday night guy with Barlow. But with him not pitching, and they really, I don't think they even pitched him this weekend, which is kind of crazy. But we played well. I don't know if that Friday starter role, if I think Darden should go there. Just I mean, he's played very well. He's pitched well. But yeah, this pitching is, at least starting pitching, is the only thing that I'm really worried about right now. The relief pitching and all that's been playing really well. So I'm very excited to see where this team can go. I definitely see them making a regional. I mean, that's just me. That's my prediction now. But the season's young. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you say regional. I'm shooting for super regionals in Omaha, but still a long way to go
Well,
until we get to
exactly.
that point. But Cliff, you talk
Exactly.
about the lineup and how deep it is, and you're right, it's an incredibly deep lineup. But speaking of deep, how about Siufo's home run to win Game
Yeah.
One, the walk-off home run? I believe it was measured 476 feet. That is an
Yep.
absolute tank job.
Bomb. Yeah. And then he made a play at second base when the score was 2-1. In that game. I mean, he was the defensive star and the offensive star of that game. And so yeah, Chufo is a great get for this team in the transfer portal.
Yeah, and Griffin, what I really liked about that home run was he hit it so high and so far that South Carolina had a really, really long time to sit there and track the flight of that baseball and contemplate what had just happened to them before it finally landed. Now, that is what puts a smile on my face.
I completely agree. I think I remember watching that in real time. I remember it going to 10, 11, 12, and I found it funny. I don't know the South Carolina pitcher's name, but he was skipping away the inning before. I don't know if he was the guy that pitched the home run ball to Kufo, but it's just a sigh of relief. I just looked it up. They've played over 300 times together, and this is the first time Clemson's hit a walk off. But I'm really going to credit Tristan Smith on the
Yes.
Saturday game. I thought that he played exceptionally. 5 innings, 9
Yeah.
strikeouts goes an incredibly long way, especially against a ranked opponent that, from start to finish, 1 through 9, a ranked opponent's always going to have hitters. That's just how it goes. Meanwhile, on the other side, Aiden Knack, I know that he is a freshman, so I am going to cut him a little bit of slack. You're obviously going to get a little bit more comfortable as the season goes on, so I'm not worried about that. But I think the relief that came behind him was incredible. Drew Titsworth, I thought that he did a great job. Nick Clayton did a good job, especially in that punch out to end the inning. And then Matthew Marshall, and then Austin Gordon. I was surprised that they put him in at the end of the game. I know that he's a starter. He's kind of your weekend beginner, your number one guy out of the rotation. But seeing him finishing off was kind of like the icing on the cake. You knew Clemson wanted this bad, especially in front of their home fans. I really don't blame them for doing that.
Yeah, Canuck. He's pitched well in that Sunday role. The past 2 starts. I mean, he's at least got through 5 innings both times, and if you can get through 5 innings, that's saying a lot in baseball, I think. But yeah, he's playing well. No Rocky. I mean, he's playing well at third base. I mean, he was all these guys that we're speaking about, except for Camarilla. Oh, and by the way, he got his on base streak snapped and his hitting streak snapped Sunday, by the way. So
I'm so impressed.
oh well, we still won the game.
He's playing hurt.
Yeah. And he's still getting hits. And so, but everybody that I think is shining right now all came through the transfer portal. And that's great. I think that's great. And but yeah, and then you got the old guys, I think. You got, the pitcher that pitched that got the save and everybody, but everybody's playing well. The whole baseball team's playing well. So I say let's just keep it moving. Keep that train rolling.
Yeah, and you talk about the transfer portal. Maybe Eric Bakich needs to take Dabo Swinney out to lunch and just kind of explain how that works. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there.
I've been saying this for a while. Bakich, Brownell, because he picked up Gerard, he picked up Clark, he picked up people 2 years ago. Soccer coach Mike Noonan, he picks up guys in the transfer portal all the time. Half of his team was from the transfer portal this season. Oregon State, Pac-12, big. I really think, you have a championship with soccer. Basketball's doing well. You're going to make your first March Madness berth. Baseball, baseball's a top 10 team. Keep an ear out, Dabo. That's all I have to say about that. You're obviously seeing success from the transfer portal here in Clemson. So we'll see, though.
Yeah, we will. You just never know with Dabo what he's going to do with the transfer portal.
Exactly.
Well, we're going to talk about some spring football practice here, but as we move away from baseball, hey, I want to tell everybody, don't forget to hit a home run with your game day culinary needs. For all of your game day food needs, you need to go check out our sponsor, Arden's Burger Grill at 1280 18 Mile Road Central. They'll hook you up with anything you need. We recommend the double dip wings. They're fantastic, but get one of their mouth-watering burgers or sizzling grills as well. You can't go wrong, and you're sure to strike out your hunger if you visit Arden's Burger Grill at 1280 18 Mile Road Central. So, guys, let's move on and talk about football for a little bit. Spring practice, getting a little deeper into it now. But before we talk about some of the things going on at practice, I do want to throw this out there because this news broke a couple of days ago, and it just was so far out of left field. It was really odd. But Clemson has had a decommitment from their 25 class, offensive lineman Jalen Beckley. And if everybody remembers, this was a kid that committed less than 2 months ago and had that big emotional moment. He was in the room full of recruits. I believe it might have been on the Elite Junior Day. And he just gets up in front of everybody and says, hey, Coach Swinney, I've got a question. Can I commit? Can I commit right now? And he committed on the spot. And this kid was raving about Clemson at the time and said this is just where he wanted to be. He was so excited to be a Tiger. And then, bam, just out of the blue, no warning, no speculation, he decommits. Now, this kid's from Texas. Is there anybody who doesn't think that Steve Sarkisian or what's his face at Texas A&M? We've repressed his name because of the Duke loss this last season. But does anybody think that there wasn't a check written somewhere?
I mean, there's obviously the shot, right? That's just how college football is. You could say that about anybody who enters the transfer portal and transfers anywhere, I think. But it's a hometown kid, too. Texas is huge. Texas Tech, TCU, they're obviously not the biggest schools. A&M, obviously, I'll bring up his name, Elko. I think he's a great coach. I'm not going to discredit him just because Duke beat Clemson.
Elko, that's it.
But
yeah, he is a good coach.
I really don't know. I honestly really don't know. I know that I don't know if you're going to bring it up. The whole David Sanders thing with Clemson being one of his last 6 schools, that could be a potential thing, maybe in courtesy of playtime. Yeah. This is obviously just theorizing because nothing really came out about it. No site really knows about it, but obviously just best of luck to him. Seeing a college football player, a high school player achieve his dream is something I'd like to see. And, even if it's not at Clemson, I hope it happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was kind of strange because, when guys commit to Clemson, I mean, they don't decommit.
Not
and not often at all. I mean, you might see a couple, but they just don't. But I can tell you right now that he's probably not recommitting. He's probably going somewhere else. Even if he said he wanted to keep his lines of communication open and he loves Clemson and all this, he's going somewhere else. And but yeah, it was kind of strange because you don't see it. Again, like you said, you don't really know that much about what happened and what the reasoning was and all that. But good luck to him.
Yeah, I agree. And I tell you what, I say, I bring up writing a check. That's a little bit tongue in cheek, just a shot at the modern landscape of college football. But Griffin, you brought up a good point, and I do think it's entirely possible. Clemson's already got several other really good offensive linemen committed for the 25 class. And then you talk about David Sanders Jr. from Providence Day, just north of Charlotte. This is the number 1 rated player in the entire country. He's a monster offensive tackle. This kid is wanted by every school in the country. And Clemson is one of his finalists. And from everybody that's close to this kid, says he speaks very highly of Clemson. And Clemson has a truly legitimate shot to get him. And then you've got, I can't pull his name right off the top of my head, the young man who decommitted from Alabama when Saban retired. This kid's a high-level 4-star offensive lineman as well. Clemson's very much in play for him. So I do have to wonder if maybe there was some writing on the wall because Beckley's a 3-star guy. Certainly wish him well. But there's some pretty big fish in the pond right now that Clemson's got their hooks in.
You could say about Sanders, 6'6", 270, there you go. There's your keystone guy for 2-3 years. He made Clemson's Final Six. I forget the date of that. I believe it was at the end of last week. Obviously, the big teams, Bama, Georgia, Ohio State are there, and then local schools, Clemson, South Carolina. Do I think South Carolina is going to sign him? I think it'd be great for the program. I don't think it's possible. I don't think it will happen.
No.
But I really think you have to credit Matt Luke again. I really do. I think that he's doing a fantastic job recruiting, despite whatever went on with Jaden Beckley. I think you're going to see a lot of that going into next season. Is he's proven himself as a recruiter? Can he prove himself as a coach? And I know that he has time and time again. It's just a matter of when this is going to happen. We're kind of waiting on the same thing with Garrett Riley in a sense, where we're just waiting for the results to show up. And I really think that they're going to after a year under his belt in a new offense with different types of players. But I'm excited to see if Clemson's offensive line continues to produce well. If David Sanders ends up picking the Tigers in his final three with the hats on the desk, if Clemson's one of them, I would not be surprised.
Yeah, I mean, David Sanders, y'all pretty much said it all about him. He's just so good, and highly talented, highly rated, 5-star kid.
And he plays defense too, by the way.
Yeah, well, yeah. But
there you go.
I don't think Clemson. Yeah, I really with our defensive line, I don't see him even sniffing. When I say sniff, I mean we need him more on the offensive line than we need the defensive line.
Oh yeah, I agree. I'm just saying, if worst case scenario happens and you had a lot of attrition on the defensive line, this kid for Providence Day last year, look, he's 6'7", 270, so he is a very streamlined offensive lineman. I read his stats somewhere. I believe they said he had 10 or 11 sacks on defense and 24 tackles for loss. This is a kid whose primary position is offensive tackle. There's a reason he's ranked number 1 in the country at his position. He's really, really good.
Yep.
Moving on from the bad news of decommitment, let's talk about spring practice and what we're hearing from there. And guys, I tell you what, and check this out. I did a story on this late last week, looking at Clemson's wide receivers going into spring practice, and one of the guys that has really stood out, and this was we were kind of expecting this a little bit, or we were waiting to see what other people were saying. But once spring practice got started, you heard guys in the defensive backfield like R.J. Mickens, Khalil Barnes, Kylan Griffin raving about Bryant Wesco, the true freshman, early enrollee, and from all accounts that we're hearing, this kid is really impressed early in spring practice.
I completely agree. And it's not just that he's performing very well. He's an incredibly well-coached kid. On Friday, I was not there, but reports say that, Wesco, I think he didn't do a drill correctly. Dabo corrected him, and he did it perfectly the next drill, the next rep. But yeah, this is a guy that I could see, kind of being a little bit of the disruptor, kind of the wide receivers you're getting from the depth chart, most likely going to end up being guys like Adam Randall, Antonio Williams, and, maybe Troy Stellato, Cole Turner. Bryant Wesco could come in here, and I fully expect him to come in at some point in the latter half of the season, similar to what Tyler Brown did at the beginning of this past season. But I really think the sky's the limit for him. He was a 5-star for a reason. I know that he went down to a 4-star because I don't know how 24/7 Sports works in terms of how they grade players. But I love the way that he runs routes. I love the way that he's able to get separation as soon as he gets after the catch and in the backfield as well. He's going to be a guy, spring game, I'm going to have my eyes on.
Yeah.
Out of these guys, sure. the two freshmen are Sammy Brown and Bryant Wesco for me. I'm excited for TJ Moore to come in the summer. But these are two guys, and Wesco continues to prove day in and day out.
Yeah, Wesco, I saw him on Friday, and I didn't see what you were talking about, but because I don't know if that was during the viewing period or after the viewing period, but I did see him running routes, and I did see coaches coaching him up, but he looks good. The one thing I said, I think I said this to you guys, but he needs to gain some weight. Like he needs to put on some. He needs to get in the weight room, and because in college, I mean, he just looked skinny, and
it just means he's
but he's
fast
super
and hard to tackle. Nobody can get their hands on him.
Exactly, and which is good. But I'm excited to see him in the spring game along with TJ Moore and Sammy Brown, and I'm excited to see Peter Woods at defensive end and all those guys. So, but yeah, you speaking of the wide receivers, Randall was in a yellow jersey today, from what I understand.
Yes.
And so there's that. I mean, when spring practice starts, people start getting hurt, I feel like. And it just never fails. Like, never fails for Clemson.
Again.
Yeah. So, but we're deep at that position. As long as Cole Turner stays healthy, I think he's going to have a good year, and hopefully a good spring game. So we'll see. I mean, you never know.
Yeah, and I'm hearing good things as well about the offensive line, especially under Coach Matt Luke coming in and establishing his system with that position group. I had a buddy of mine the other day send me this, and I forget the exact measurables on everybody, but he sent me a message and said, "Hey man, these are the heights and weights of Clemson's projected starting five right now," and I think the smallest one was maybe 305, 310 pounds. And Clemson right now, this offensive line, I mean, it's yet to be seen how well they gel, but the reports coming out of spring practice are wholly positive. But one thing's for sure, this is a huge group of young men. They are monstrous in physical stature.
Oh, yeah, and I think the best part for the offensive line is you only lost one guy. Unfortunately, that was your center, who, that could be a little bit dicey, but from what I've heard, people do have faith in the new center Ryan Linthicum. I strongly agree as well. From what I've seen, but returning offensive line pieces is huge. I said this in the summer. I said this in the fall. If you have the same four guys in the same wavelength for a large amount of years, I think you're going to be completely okay. It's a developmental group, and when you have freshmen last season like Trent Howard performing like they did, it's trending in a good direction. And like I said, again, when you have Matt Luke at the helm, I trust him a little bit more than Thomas Austin in terms of progression, in terms of gelling an offensive line, in terms of being successful on the offensive line. And what I've heard from spring practice, I've heard that's nothing but the truth. I think that this offensive line is going to have a big test, obviously. The spring game might not be the best place to look at that, so we might have to wait week one against Georgia, which might not be the best, but I have faith. The chemistry's there. I'm confident about this five. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I am too. There, especially with Matt Luke at the helm, and I just like you said, I just don't think Thomas Austin had the experience, and even though he played for Dabo, and yeah, I think he was too. Matt Luke's got the experience. He's been there. He's done that, and I think he's going to get the job done as a coach, and we've all seen it as a recruiter. So, already seen it here at Clemson. So I'm excited about it to see where, like you said, I don't see it happening in the spring game. I don't think you're really going to see them gel because I think they're going to be on opposite teams.
Yeah.
But I don't know that you're going to be able to really notice it at the Georgia game like you were talking about because it is Georgia. I think you're going to notice it week 2, definitely. But yeah, I'm excited to see how far they can come and up until week 1.
Yeah, Georgia for sure. I mean, that's a litmus test right there. I mean, it's you're getting thrown into the fire right out of the gate. So we will all be counting down to the last Saturday in August with bated breath. I can't wait to see how that one goes down. But guys, while we've got just a few minutes left, we're going to talk more about spring practice and different position groups and breaking news as it happens throughout spring practice. We've still got almost 2.5 weeks to go there, so we will have a lot more to talk about that over the next successive episodes. But we just want to talk a few minutes about basketball before we hop off here tonight. And guys, I tell you what, I mean, for the basketball team, they were trending so well. They won their 20th game against Pitt, and all was going so great until you go up to South Bend playing an 11-17 Notre Dame team. You can say what you want about them winning 4 in a row, 5 of 6, and playing well. They were still an 11-17 team. Notre Dame ain't good by anybody's measurements. And you go up there and lose 69-62. I'm sorry, I may be a bit more demonstrative about this than most. That's a bad loss.
It's not the worst. I will say that. And Notre Dame had a top 5 ACC coach in Micah Shrewsbury. He was able to coach Penn State to the NCAA tournament. I think Notre Dame are an NCAA tournament in a year, 2 years from now. It's a team that's just gelling at the right time. I really think that people should not overreact about this loss because Clemson also did not have Jack Clark. He was out with an illness. He was your whole defensive guy. And obviously when you lose a starting 5 piece after you have so much success winning, I believe 6 of your last 7, you're obviously going to have some kinks in the system. Yet I did think Chauncey Wiggins did have a solid game. Otherwise, PJ Hall got
he needs to rebound better.
He played well. He just needs to play better
rebound
defense,
better. Yeah.
Which I think comes with time. I think it comes with a better of a leadership role, and I think he should be fine. But we're in the best time of the year. It's March Madness. The best tournament of the year is almost. We're gonna find out if Clemson will. We're gonna find out who Clemson play 2 weeks from today, and they are projected the 6th seed. But this week is huge. You have Syracuse tomorrow. It's senior night. Syracuse is a little pissed off. They're also tied for Clemson for the double bye spot, and then you have to travel to Wake Forest to be a Wake Forest team that hasn't lost at home yet, who, by the way, are also tied for the 4th seed. So if Clemson win out, they have a double bye. If they lose out, that's when the problem arises. But you have to take it game by game if you're Brownell. In terms of injuries, I really think that, it sucks because the wear and tear has been very prevalent in guys like Hall and Shefflin, like Cliff said last week. But I think this team should be okay for tournament time. You just have to bounce back tomorrow night against Syracuse. I really think that senior night's going to help around with that, especially with it being, for a guy like PJ Hall, it means a lot more. But I wouldn't worry about the Notre Dame loss. I say that about every loss, but you lose in basketball. You're not going to be perfect. It happens.
Here's the thing, man. And I think Clemson has to, and I said this last week, they have to get the double bye. Have to. Because I don't think Clemson is good enough to win 4 games in 4 days. I think they're good enough to win 3 games in 3 days, but I don't think they're good. I don't know. Like, I just don't know. And I mean, they've proved it over these last 8 games. They can't win 4 games in a row. So what makes you think that they can win 4 games in 4 days? They've won 3 games in a row, and I think they can do it. Now they have to stay healthy, and Jack Clark has to play. Has to.
He will. He
doesn't play. Yeah. I know. I'm just saying, like, he has to play. I don't think I think that starting 5 has to stay intact. And then you twinkle Beadle and Wiggins and Godfrey in there. But yeah, I don't think they'll have a problem. I really don't. I don't think they'll have a problem with Syracuse. I know they haven't shot well in Little John, and I still to this day do not understand that at all. But
for God's sake, hit threes. If you're going to shoot,
well, that was the problem.
At least make more than 5 out of 25. At least shoot better.
That's why 20%. They lost. That's part of the reason they lost the game to Notre Dame, because in just about every other category in that game, they were even except for 3-pointers, and they made like 5 more threes than we did, and that's 7 points.
There you go. There you go.
And so
5 more threes. Yeah. I mean,
well,
stick
I
it to the
mean,
game.
they made and I mean, both teams were 11 for 14 from the free throw line. They both, I think, made 18. I think they had one more field goal than we did or something like that. But there were multiple categories where they had the same exact number. But 3-pointers, Gerard has to hit 3-pointers. Like, he's got to hit them. He can't have an off game. Chase Hunter has to sprinkle in 2 or 3. And I think PJ has to at least hit 1, and then I think we're good. But another thing is PJ shot way too many threes. He needs to be. These last 2 games, he has to be down on that block, or at least at the top of the key and rotate down. Because when they pass him the ball and he drives to the basket, nobody can stop him. Same thing with Shefflin.
I think Syracuse, you're going to see that. Syracuse is a big guard team. You saw this, J.J. Starling, Judah Mitz. They're their starters. Stellar backcourt. Judah Mitz, I think, is one of the best players in the ACC. But their front court is a little bit different. They lost Jesse Edwards last year. He was kind of their main center. I think this game spells PJ Hall all over it. It's his senior night too, so I really expect him to have a big game. And he's been talking about this senior night for a while. Last week, after the win against Pitt, he was talking about it. He's like, I am so excited to represent the city of Clemson, this team, the fans, one final time. So I really think PJ Hall is destined for a big game. And with Joe Girard playing his former team again and coming off of the incredible accolade that he had in the last game of 2,000 points, I really think it's a bounce back game for him. And I'm glad that he went dry against Notre Dame compared to an ACC tournament game or, the Wake Forest game on Saturday. I really think that this team is okay. They just need to hit shots. You're not going to win. No team's going to win a game hitting 20% from 3. It happens. It happens. I think this team will bounce back. I do expect a win tomorrow night.
Yeah, I do think it's happened too much.
Yeah, I do too.
To this team this year.
I do agree, though.
But it's not going to happen. Like, I think we'll be fine. Like, we'll win these 2 games as long as the starting 5 is intact.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree as well. And hopefully on the next episode, we're talking about a couple big basketball wins for the Tigers. I have faith that they can do it. Know you guys and everybody else does as well. Just have to go out there and get it done. But that's going to wrap it up for us on this episode of Around the Paul. We got to a lot of topics tonight. I hope everybody out there watching or listening's enjoyed it. Be sure to check us out at ClemsonSportsMedia.com. A lot of what we talk about here, we've got some great written articles about it as well. So check us out there. And if you like what we do here on Around the Paul and on YouTube, go ahead and tackle that like and subscribe button. It helps us out. Spread the word. Tell your friends and family about us. We appreciate it. And give us a follow on X, formerly Twitter, at CU Sports Media. So we'll see you out there, everybody, in Clemson land. We appreciate it. And until next time from the crew at Around the Paul, this is Garrett Mitchell, Griffin Barfield, and Clifton Kennedy saying good luck, God bless, Godspeed, and as always, go Tigers.
Go Tigers.
Go Tigers. Go Tigers.